and have all that information right there. I mean, it shows just that example there shows you the power of being able to do the power of AI. That's why I said for nonfiction, AI is a fantastic, powerful tool because you do an interview with somebody like you and I talk.
Welcome to the Delos Diaries, where we explore the untamed frontier of writing and creativity. Join your host, Paul Delos Santos, a writer and self-published author, as he navigates the ever-evolving world of storytelling.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Delos Diaries. I'm here with Eric Maynard. How you doing today, Eric?
Paul, I'm doing great, and I really appreciate you having me on.
Well, anytime. I'm always looking for people to talk about the creative process, as you know. And I just want to first question right off the bat is what got you into writing and creating? I mean, it seems like you have an interest in it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, being creative's always been kind of a natural thing I've had between designing restaurants, basically doing anything I can designing wise. I've designed websites for myself, for other people. I have a couple businesses I design through websites, and just naturally telling stories have always been a part of my life. So for me, it just went hand in hand.
Mm. Nice. I mean, it seems like a lot of people discover this early age. When did you discover kind of when you were a creative?
It's funny, when I was a teenager, I wrote poetry like
Hmm.
any crazy little pubescent teenager did,
I was
to
the same
try
way,
to
so
go.
don't feel bad.
Yeah, but then over the years, I'd just doodle, kind of write little things here and there, and then one day, I had a story that stuck in my head for over a year couple years, and finally, I was in a place where I had all my friends in another state. Everyone I knew was just literally an 8-hour drive away, so it was either watch TV, read books, or start trying to see if I could get this story out that was in my head. So I started writing it, and then my first book took me an ungodly amount of time just because I'd write it and then, oh yeah, who cares? Put it aside. Went back to writing it. My second and third book was obviously much quicker of a time, but it was just one of those things that I started because I was completely out of the range of my other friends without things to do. So to entertain myself, I started writing a story that I was interested in that I haven't heard about because it went into telling about small farm town little criminal lives that most people think, oh, farm towns, it's sleepy, nothing happens. Which growing up, mind you, I exaggerated quite a bit of
Yeah,
in the
naturally.
book, but the fact is small towns are definitely not as sleepy as some people make it out to be
Mm.
anymore.
Yeah, no, I used to live in Cedar City, which I think is close to a lot of these sleepy towns you mentioned. So
Mhm.
it's very much a case of I understand that there's a lot of action that can happen in small towns because everyone's so tightly wound together.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see, like, after I wrote the first book, some of the people I grew up with, some of the people I known, they read and they're like, "Oh yeah, we definitely did some of that stuff."
Yeah, you mentioned that your first book it took a long period. I mean, I just talked to another author recently, and they seem like a lot of authors will tell you that the first book's always the longest, and then from there the process gets easier. Did you kind of feel when you mentioned you felt that way? What made the process easier the second and third go around?
Well, it's one of those things that the first time it was basically breaking myself into the whole habit of writing, the whole
Hmm.
understanding of doing so, and getting into that mindset of telling the story. It's where once I got to my second book, I took a little bit of time, but I still had that mindset because it's like any other skill. If you don't do it, if you don't write, you end up just having to start from scratch.
Hmm.
At So after I kind of really got myself set in the mind of this is writing, this is what I need to do to get it right. Because even my first book, going back to look at the originals that I started with before editing, and it was horrible.
Ah, that's how it always
But
works.
yeah, but and of course, by the second and third book, there was a whole lot of tools out there to help streamline the process of editing, cleaning up, and going forward.
Was AI and was it like how long was your book? Like how long did you
Um,
write it?
my edit, the first edit, I read through the entire thing probably 4 times rewriting, doing my own thing there, and a lot of my first edit was spent, like, fixing grammar mistakes, and then the weird thing is, like, my editor, she found a ton of grammar mistakes that, because grammar is my weak, very weak area.
Yeah.
But but with the second book, I use like tools like Grammarly, and
Mhm.
I forget all the tools that was out at that time that I was playing with to see what worked, but Grammarly was the one I stuck with the most, where that picked up a lot of the grammar mistakes that I had, and I used that way I could go back after I fixed all the grammar mistakes. I went back, reread everything, made sure it read properly to me, edit what I, instead of focusing, okay, let's get grammar fixes here or there.
Mhm.
With Grammarly, their AI system to fix your whole system, making sure that you have a readable product,
Mhm.
you can spend more time focusing on the whole story instead of, oh, I forgot that comma, I forgot
Yeah.
that there.
Mhm.
And for any storyteller, we want to spend more time telling stories and making our stories read nicely compared to simply saying, "Oh, look, common mistake, blah blah blah, what's I have you."
Yeah, and I just feel like most people when they edit their book it goes developmental first. So for here to
Mhm.
hear that you went grammar first tells me like you were were you confident in your developmental edits or were there still developmental edits what to make in your book in your storytelling?
My developmental edits were, I was confident in them, but it was a whole thing of, and for me, when I realized that I had so many grammar mistakes,
Mhm.
then I started questioning other things. So
Oh, okay.
as you're going through, and this is solely me, I don't know how other people are, but
Mhm.
it's just like, think about when you were in high school or whatever, and the teacher started using their pen to mark up your paper.
Mhm.
The first thing you do is you start sitting there going, "Oh, how bad was this? Holy
Mhm.
criminy."
I used to do
And
that too as a former teacher, so
yeah, and like for me, I homeschool my son, and the one thing is mind you, he's only 6 years old right now, but
Mhm.
as he's working, I try to make sure I don't sit there and use like the whole pens and all this. I'm like, well, look here, you could have done this differently or blah, blah, blah. That way, because like I said, with my writing, I know seeing like a whole stack of papers this big with marks through it, you kind of sit there and go, Now do I need to go through and redo all these in the document?" And then as you're typing up, you're like, oh, should I change this? And it just kind of, to me, it was more mind sucking than it was productive.
Mhm. Yeah, I get that. I get that whole feeling is that I think whenever I see authors raw manuscripts, I went to a author fair one time and I was like, they had the raw manuscripts and they saw all the red marks. I'm like, wow, how did you I'm gonna he's gonna be a future guest on the podcast. So I
Mhm.
mean I'm gonna ask him like, that process, like you see all these red marks. So it's nice to know that you still take into account like it's still an overwhelming experience. But you mentioned Grammarly as a tool. Like how much has it helped your overall writing and just generally made you a better writer in terms of grammar?
Well, Grammarly itself has helped me quite a bit in my writing, things like that. But AI as a whole, I've gotten into using AI in the sense of, if I'm doing research for something, like right now I'm writing my memoirs,
Mhm.
and that way, if it sells one copy or no copies, it's more meant for my kids in that sense.
Yeah.
But writing it, I'm using AI quite a bit to check my grammar, like Grammarly. I'm using it also to check facts of things I wrote, and because, mind you, I'm 40 now, and a lot of these events I'm writing about happened when I'm in my 20s, so 2
Mhm.
decades ago. You're kinda sitting there
Yeah.
going, "Okay, was this accurate? Am I remembering this correctly?" Things like that. So, I use AI, I use searches, and the whole thing with AI is a very powerful tool to be able to write as long as you're not using AI to write your story for you.
Hmm. Oh no, I wholeheartedly agree. Like I think I use AI for a lot of things for basic like generic copy, like stuff that would take me 5 minutes to write. I can train an AI to do like learning management tool. So it's like one of those things where I truly feel that AI can do the generic stuff, like like write me a tagline, like that's a good example. Like, and then you can tweak it based on how you feel. So, how do you feel writers should be able to use AI? And overall, like your general thoughts on writers who are kind of opposed? And what can you say to them?
Well, if you're opposed to AI in general, I mean, it just depends on your extent of AI usage because anymore nowadays, if you're using Word, basically any writing tool from Word doc to script, I can't remember a lot of the names now, but
Scrivener.
generally Scrivener, yes. But almost all of them basically have some sort of AI built into them to be able to help you write better. I mean, look at it. You write even writing an email nowadays. You're typing up, and all of a sudden, this big suggestion comes in of, "Is this what you want? Hit tab." And you're like, "Sure, why not tab?" That's AI. That's not just
Hmm.
the computer going, "Oh, well, I know this guy well enough. I've been with him." No, it's AI. It's been trained to help you for common things. And AI is wonderful in the sense of it can get you a lot of stuff moving a lot faster, help you clean everything up.
Hmm.
The the only problem I see that people really are getting all anti-AI is because like I did this as a test is like I said, I do restaurant design.
Hmm.
So as a test, I put together a book of restaurant design skills, like almost a manual.
Hmm.
And I ran it all through, I made my own little outline, ran it through AI, wrote a paragraph and asked it to extend that paragraph to a chapter and just to see what it came out. It was very monotone, very dry, all this.
Hmm.
Now, it could have gotten better since it, mind you, the book I've never put out. It was all meant for a test,
Hmm.
just so I could say, okay, I can see this and that. But like AI is probably great if you're trying to write a very fact oriented book
Hmm.
where you're extending it, you're putting in facts, you're saying extend this for me so that you don't have like you can only think of writing about a half hour or half a paragraph and you're like, I need at least three more paragraphs on this topic.
Hmm.
That I can see being powerful where you go through and edit it. Where I kind of will side with people that are anti AI is when they're saying when you're writing fiction books, if you're writing all AI.
Hmm.
But it's also as time progresses, if AI gets better and good enough to write their own books and you can't tell the difference, I mean, what are you going to say? No, I'm not going to read a story just because it was computer generated.
Hmm.
That's like saying, no, I'm not looking at an image somebody posts because they did it with AI.
Yeah.
It's silly to say I'm gonna judge this just because of how it was created, not what's
Hmm.
behind it.
I think overall, I think with the art side, just going to the art side, I think there are ethical dilemmas of how it generates based off of it still, how it generates right
Right.
now. But I think for fiction, I just think I've used it to come up with like genre blends. I think that's the
Mhm.
extent of what I've done, and I put in like and then help me create a log line based on my outline, and that's what I've done. It's just like one of those things where it's like it's doing stuff that I feel that can easily be done by another human who is just doing it, but it's just like going to be more dry and stoic about it rather than something that's going to be very fat. It's going to, like you mentioned, factual.
Mhm.
Um, but from a nonfiction standpoint, I feel that a lot of people are just missing the boat with asking it to outline for them. Like I'm one of
Right.
those people who always ask, "Can you outline this for me?" and provide me some links or some reference points to kind of do that. Do you feel that's where AI shines is helping people outline and ideate from that perspective rather than create the full length?
I think the people that use it for creative purposes in the sense of, like you said, outline, providing links, providing references, getting an idea of what, and even making suggestions of, I'm trying to write this. What suggestions do you have?
Mhm.
And being able to look at it and say, okay, I could use that. I mean, when like I played with a fantasy book kind of a thing
Mhm.
that I haven't gotten around to writing, but it's still rolling around my head. But like I used AI imagery, typed in paragraph of what I was thinking, it popped out an image, and that image helped me sit there and go, I can start basing a bit of a story off of this. I can start doing these things. Things like that helps. I mean, you have text, and I understand the dilemma of like the artistic imagery of AI
Mhm.
versus, but really even the text version is using information from other writers, other websites, a whole plethora of areas that the more you find the source of it, there's always a source it has to learn from.
Yeah.
So if you're worrying about that, I mean, at this point, it's not like it's going to say, okay, you write something in the style of so and so, and it gives you all this outline, all this stuff. It can be problematic if you're letting just anything go. Write me this fiction book. I'll post it on Amazon,
Mhm.
and that literally happened quite a bit when ChatGPT first came out.
Yep.
Is writers were just throwing books together, putting putting them in the format and poorly, from what I understand, and throwing them out and putting them on, what was it, the Kindle books,
Yeah.
so or Kindle Unlimited,
Mhm.
where people would basically read it, even reading a few pages. They had 100 books made from AI that they got 1% or 10% of it read, they still made money off of it.
Yeah.
So in that sense, that's, I believe, what stemmed the whole resistance to it. But for me, like I said, my view is it's a powerful tool. Like, for an example, I can say that I run a podcast myself for dads and things like that, where we get
Mhm.
together and talk, right? I in my recording, I have the whole interview in a Word doc with the transcripts. I'll take that transcript and upload it into AI and say, please write me a summary of this for for a website article.
Mhm.
Post it there, go through, read it, edit it, fix it, and then I have it do a paragraph summary for the show notes.
Yeah.
And some people, I've had people sit there and go, well, why would you use AI for this? Can't you write your own? I can, but here's the problem is, do I really want to spend a couple hours reviewing the interview,
Mhm.
reviewing my notes, trying to write 6 to 8 paragraphs, and then do another paragraph summarizing everything basically,
Mhm.
or take 10 minutes, plop it out, go through, review it, fix what needs fixed, and have all that information right there. I mean, it shows, just that example there shows you the power of being able to do the power of AI. That's why I said for nonfiction, AI is a fantastic, powerful tool, because
Mhm.
you do an interview with somebody like you and I talking. You could take
Mhm.
the transcripts after our conversation, turn it into a Word doc that you can put in there, then go through, edit it, put in the necessary facts that you thought you're blah blah blah, and then you have a section of that interview you can use to put into a book. Now, if you're saying, okay, write a book off this whole interview, that's kind of where I'm sitting there going, okay, well, that's sketchy. But
Mhm.
I mean, I am very much for finding the fastest way of doing something that's effective and efficient.
Mhm.
So it's, like I said, it's a wonderful tool if you use it for the right reasons, but anything can be misused.
Oh
You
yeah.
look at you look at phones. Phones are these smartphones are wonderful tools, but how often do you see people just so focused on their phones that they don't pay attention to anything around them?
Mhm. Yeah, no, it's a good analogy. That's a great analogy right there. It's just like I think as technology grows, there's going to be more drawbacks that people won't like. People will take for granted. I think personally, I agree with you. I mean, it's just one of those things where AI is so prevalent. I think it's just new. I think that's the thing is that it's new and it's scary because people are like, whoa, people are mass producing these books. I'm like, but they're not very good because they're contrived of very static and generic language
Mhm.
and it's just stuff like that. I think there's a miseducation on the AI. I think there's a misconception because everyone thinks killer robots. I think
Right.
I, I think the misconception is that that AI is going to take over things. I disagree. I think it replaces jobs that can be streamlined,
Mhm.
but it can't create in the sense that it's going to be like humanized. But at the same time, um how do you feel it could be utilized in fiction more, like properly, so to speak?
Well, like I said, one example is I use the AI for image generation because I'm a
Mhm,
very my way of thinking, I'm very focused with imageries and visuals and things like that to where I put in something that gives me like I say, give me a scene of this, and it pops out a mystical land. I'm sitting there, I can start working a story up from there.
mhm,
If I say, give me some alternative ideas for this, and I put in some of my writing, and it gives me alternatives. I can take those alternatives that I'm mentally blocked on. So, say you have writer's block, you wrote yourself into, you see yourself writing yourself into a corner,
mhm,
and you're like, okay, either I rewrite this all, or I pop this into AI saying, give me some ideas how the main character can get out of this. And it pops up a list of different things that could happen. You can look at that list, you could go through the list and say, oh, I like this, it works well, I can work this in. Tools like that makes writing fiction quite fun because the AI is not writing it for you.
mhm.
It's it's helping you be able to think beyond what you normally would think. It's kind of like right now I'm doing some courses on improving my website building skills because I deal a lot with helping other people get their sites up so they can get a little more of a presence out there in the world. And one thing that I'm doing through this class that keeps popping up is they are showing you how to use AI properly to fix code, to fix like you forgot this. How do you ask AI? What did I forget in this code to do this? And it'll go through, fix it. In the course I'm using, it comes out and shows you what it fixed so that you don't sit there and overlook it. But it's like any other tool, as long as you're using it to be productive, to build up your final goal. When I write a website and I use AI, I'm not going to be sitting there going, okay, I need it to make it look this way. I'm gonna have AI do it all, blah, blah, blah. I'm gonna have to go in, I'm gonna have to clean it up, do what I need it to do, make my adjustments, and have the knowledge that I'm gonna use to that. Just like when you write fiction, you're gonna
Yeah.
use your knowledge to write it and put everything how it should be.
Well, I mean, for me, how I've used AI for short stories is very much a very different ball game in terms of how I approach it. It's just, the way I do it is I basically ask it for comp titles. Like what would be a
Mhm.
comp title and stuff like that. So I get research and basically they'll give me like this ton of research. I think
Right.
like personally, I feel that it can cut down on the research time of like
Mhm.
finding like, oh my gosh, like what some character traits I want to go with. I'm like, oh, here's a list of character traits you can use. I'm like, oh, I like that one. Let me pull that one out. Let me pull that one out. It's
Mhm.
just one of those things where it feels like a writing buddy,
Right.
like someone you can bounce an idea off of and be like, okay, so what do you think about like some ticks it should have? Like, like, oh, here's some unique samurai ticks. I'm like, he rubs a scar. I'm like, okay, I'll use that one and work that into my story. I think that's kind of where I draw the line, so to speak, is that it helps you ideate, but it can't create.
Correct. So, and that's I don't know if that's how I was coming across, but it's
No, 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 no. I mean,
basically you use it to, like you said, come up with ideas,
Yeah.
build off those ideas, use them to basically build up so that you have a foundation. And then with all your ideas in place, you start writing. And like I said, if you're asking to give you a list of things for this, like a list of characteristics, a list of titles, a list of whatever,
Mhm.
then I see nothing wrong with using AI in any way.
Yeah.
It it's a tool. It's meant to be used like any other tool. I mean, a hammer's there to hit a nail.
Mhm.
You hit your friend in the foot with a hammer, you're
You misuse the
gonna
tool.
yeah, exactly. So, like any other tool, use it right and you can get good things. Use it wrong, people's gonna dislike it.
Yeah, naturally, and I think the biggest thing is that AI has been around like random like name generators. I think fantasy
Yeah.
name generators are a big AI tool. I think now we can streamline that process by going to one place rather than trying to find a website that does it for us. I think that's something I did when I was a high schooler. I can writing short stories and poetry. I'm like just like give me a name for a fantasy place that sounds African
Right.
like there's a website for that, but now we can get some real and actually get some good ones because they'll actually try to implement a language and a meaning to it, which
Mhm.
actually creates depth to a story. So you're looking at a situation where like, but ultimately at the end of the day, the person who has to write your story is you. You can't have an AI complete. You can have an outline, but you can't have it write for you.
Right. Well, at least not something that you're gonna be proud to put your name on.
Hmm.
It so, I mean, again, AI can write a story,
Hmm.
uh, good or bad, however you wanna look at it, and as AI progresses, it might be able to start writing better stories, but right now, at least while we're recording this, AI doesn't give a good story writing to where you feel engaged in it.
Hmm.
It's very static, like you said. It's very to the point. This is this, this, this. It's like I said, great for nonfiction, great for research, but for the actual story, it's better to write your own story and enjoy discovering all the different turns and oh my gods and all the things that come with writing.
Yeah, I think that's a healthy way to look at it. I think that's the best way to put it. So, I mean, you mentioned earlier that you used it to kind of do some creative restaurant designs. I mean, just to do a model, just to do a mock up, just to see what it can do. I mean, uh, like what is the art of restaurant design? Because I was really interested. I saw it on your bio. I'm like, what is the art of that? Because I know there's a technique there that you're just not that you don't know the finer points of.
Well, see, with restaurant design, like for me, I strictly focus on the equipment and the bar design,
Hmm.
and it's almost like an unseen thing
Yeah.
for me. And it's understanding the flow of the chef, understanding how he's going to be cooking or how she's going to be cooking, however the chef is going to be running their kitchen, then how the food's getting out to the customers, how fast they can have it so that they can turn the tables and bring in business. Because the longer a customer sits at a table, the less money the restaurant makes normally.
Mhm.
And unless the restaurant's empty and then it doesn't make a difference. But the fact is the the art of understanding the flow, understanding the look, understanding the feel, because a restaurant that's designed properly with everybody working in tangent to make it work for the appearance, it's basically if every piece isn't in order properly, then you have a disaster of a restaurant that's not going to last long. And
Sounds like a
it's
book.
kind of, but so in a sense, if you think of it like a book, you have you have the architect who's trying to draw this big drawn out story, and you look at the story and say, okay, I'm editing this part of the story, the part of the restaurant. And for me, the reason I like the equipment side is if you ever get, at least I don't know if this makes me sound weirder than I am, but if you ever walk into a restaurant kitchen before they actually start cooking on it, everything's set up ready to start. and you see all this shiny, gorgeous stainless steel everywhere. To me, that was like an amazing thing to see.
Mhm.
And it's like I said, it might sound weird, but all that shiny stainless steel, all seeing how stuff's going to flow and just seeing how everyone's going to work before they actually get in there. It's exciting. It's kind of like you said, writing a story where you're sitting there going, okay, I know they're going to have to turn here, they're going to have to do this here, and if they want to make this work properly, to get it out of the kitchen, they have to do all these things have to come together. And there's a lot of AI tools out there now that helps with putting all this together, but like there's one that if you have a professional designer, I wouldn't suggest it, but for people that are working with like a mom and pop's equipment dealer, these AI tools that allow you to design your restaurant, it works for the health department, but the problem is like any good story, the AI makes something that's going to be able to get you out the door, but it's not going to be functional. You're going to have issues. You're going to find flaws. You're going to have a whole lot of things to address as time progresses.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I said, I've used it like for ideas before, and it's good to a point, but for me, it's easier just to dig in, start designing, get everything in place, and start moving forward so that I can make everything the way it needs to be.
Yeah, it's like that. I asked that question because mostly because I see parallels, like you kind of touched on it, between story writing and restaurant design, because you have to go into it with intention, with a purpose, and
Hmm.
and know what tools and know what things you need. Like, and I think there's the parallel there, and I think it just truly feels that way. So it's just one of those just overall good analogies, so to speak, that you need to that kind of I felt that was relevant to your experience at creating. So switching gears here, I feel you also have a business that helps people build a presence online. How important is that online presence, especially like building like your footprint on the web, especially as an author?
So, one of the biggest things that as an author, it's a very big thing because you find yourself directing people back to your own website. It,
Hmm.
people that like your work is going to want to look and see what you're doing, see the type of art or whatever project you're trying to put out. There's a guy that wrote children's book called The Justice Frogs. He does a thing called Pancakes with Your Dads. And one thing that his books were is they were all listed on Amazon alone. I'm like, dude, if you put this website up, people can find your books, can find the you're writing about your status of what you're doing with the books, keep up with all the stuff you're doing. So him as an author, he was having the books as part of his s- persona with the writing for kids books, doing his social media stuff for fatherhoods and what's have you. Once he got that website up, he said he saw a large influx of book purchases. He had more people following him on social media because people could find him across platforms. He said that even some of the weird articles he wrote for his website, people were reading more and things like that. So, I mean, he's not writing articles every day, but he's putting out enough stuff that keeps people entertained, keeps people coming back, and he also draws people in with his social media to the website because I once heard you have two options. You can have your books out for everybody else to sell, or you can have it out for everybody else, but try to bring people into your site.
Hmm.
Because if you're selling the books off of your site, then you make the money.
Yep.
You the only thing you're doing is you're buying the books and you're paying the shipping to send it out. You're not paying a commission, you're not paying this, that, the other thing. So it helps you be able to one, make more money yourself depending on how many books you're selling. Two, you can sell, say, autograph books if you wanted to if somebody loves your writing enough, you could autograph it, send it through, and it keeps your fans, the people that enjoy your writings, up to date on what you have coming.
Mhm.
So it's a very powerful thing to have.
Where would you think authors should start if they're like, "Oh, I don't know how to build a web presence." Where should they start?
There's tons of stuff out there.
Mhm.
For me, like, I started with WordPress because of the amount of free plugins, free themes that you could use for it is
Mhm.
astounding. There's even like I the hosting service I use even has a AI WordPress builder where you can type in and basically it'll put everything together for you. And if there's something that happens in the website that you're like, okay, how can I do this? You can go to YouTube literally and search how to put in WordPress and how to, whatever it
Mhm.
is.
Yeah.
There's probably 300 videos waiting for you to watch on how to do it.
Yeah.
So the amount of tools out there now, if that idea scares you, there's like the simpler websites like Wix, I think it is, and
Mhm. Squarespace and all the other
y-
types of like
yeah,
basic builders.
right. Basic builders. The only thing that the reason I never push anyone that direction is because once you got your WordPress up, you can expand it as you go. You can improve things. You can do what's needed.
Mhm.
For those other ones, once they're very limited on what you can do. You can make a nice looking website by all means, but if you want to add certain factors to it that you're like, oh, I want to make like this website, this guy has this, I want to do this, and you go and go, okay, I can't do it. Why not? It's because it's a custom made program or plugin that's designed for WordPress that you work off of.
Yeah.
WordPress is still the largest website builder out there. So if you're going to have it, you go with WordPress, you can adjust it, do all these fun things with it, find tons of free plugins and themes to get exactly what you want. I can't tell you how many websites I bought or not bought, excuse me, built
Mhm.
with all this stuff and never once bought a plugin or a theme for it.
Yeah.
And I have it's kind of like that pancakes with your dad's website. There was not a single plugin or theme purchased for that website because he wanted to conserve his money for other things.
Mhm.
So when we did it basic. I took maybe an hour out of my day, ran through everything with him, and then occasionally answered text messages. And now he's doing stuff that I'm looking at the site going, oh, how did you pull that off?
Yeah, so he learned.
Exactly. And he's even told me before that a lot of it was just doing YouTube searches.
Okay. So educating yourself.
Yeah, and he swore he was the worst person at IT, and he learned basically how to manage once his website was up, learn to manage it and deal with everything very easily on his own with no problems.
Yeah.
The benefits that come with having your own or website is that you have much more control. Plus, you can set up your newsletter, start setting up stuff to have your own audience because say any social media platform you have your whole thing built around, if everyone just says, I'm done with this, you want to go to a different website or a different
Mhm.
social media, if you want to do whatever, if those people aren't likely going to follow you to the other platform, especially if they don't know about the other platform.
Mhm.
So if you have a website with an emailing newsletter, or even
Mhm.
just collect the emails and say, hey, I'm only going to email you with important announcements, with new books, things like that. You don't do a monthly newsletter. You can at least email people saying, hey, I'm leaving this platform. I'll be on this platform. Here's my list, just so you're aware. You can be able to let people know where, say, whatever social media you're on, you're like, you could post something and the likelihood they're going to see it is slim. I don't care what platform you're on.
Yeah. It feels like social media is kind of like this ever evolving thing with TikTok and Instagram and Facebook like being like the older generation now, and Twitter being what it is, and Blue Sky and Threads and everything else. I mean, is it really useful in a sense to have that email newsletter so you can inform people of which platforms you're on properly and when the evolutions of social media change?
I'm not going to say it's useful for letting everyone know about what social media is you're on and things like that, but
Hmm.
it's definitely a useful tool so that you can send out a more directed post to let people know that, hey, this is what I'm doing. There's some authors that I've heard where more people read their newsletters than they do their books because they're interested in what they're doing with their life, the things they're doing with their kids, all this stuff. And they might not be having somebody on their newsletter reading their book, but their name's going to be on the top of that person's mind, or at least in that person's mind, that's going to say, this dude puts out an awesome newsletter. I enjoy it. He writes these books and he tells his friend, and his friend looks up and goes, "Oh, I like these kind of books. Let's read them."
Yeah,
So I mean, it's one, it gets your name out there more. It keeps your audience there for you to be able to associate with, to keep their attention. Where social media, I mean, I can tell you that if I post something on Twitter, on Facebook, LinkedIn, um, just any of the list of social medias, they can go out, but unless you have a very slim list of accounts you're following, then the fact's going to be that anybody with a couple hundred or what so have you accounts they follow, they're going to miss your post
hmm,
9 out of 10 times.
yeah,
So
yeah.
and so yeah.
Yeah. It feels like it just changes too much that you can't rely on, that you need a more stable way to contact people. I think that's why email hasn't died. I think that's why email lists are so important when you're an author, to build that newsletter and that touch point with them. Just overall, like what types of content do you think authors should be focusing on when they're trying to build their author brand?
Well, see, that goes back to what kind of writing or what kind of persona you want to have.
Hmm. Yeah.
For an example, like EA Maynard, I stick with that as my tag for all my online presence.
Hmm.
Instead of saying Eric A. Maynard, the fact is in my mind, EA Maynard's somewhat of a different person because when you look at EA Maynard, he does like a father's podcast, homeschooling
Hmm.
stuff. He writes books, kitchen design, just a whole world of stuff.
Yeah.
In all truth, when I put out contents for people to read my newsletter, I'm telling them, hey, this is what I'm doing. This has been the newest thing my family, and I don't go into detail about families, but
Yeah.
I'll sit there and I'll talk about, this is generally what my family's done. Like today, everyone in my family is completely sick and all this.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear
Oh no, it's fine. I'm watching my son sit on the couch right now on the camera. So,
that.
but the fact is I tell stories like that. Like as I
Hmm.
work, I'm watching my son trying to recoup while he watches the little Tuttle twins
Hmm.
and eating some rice balls that my wife made him.
Oh, nice.
Different. So I tell things like that.
Hmm.
So, but I've also shifted my brand online from being like, you see right behind me, Country Secrets, which was my first
Hmm.
book. That was a more grittier, more like rough time. So when I wouldn't say rough time, that's the wrong word.
But
More of a
grittier
grit,
overall. Yeah.
yeah, grittier kind of writing. So when I wrote in my newsletters at that point, it was more about how I came up with the stuff that happened in the book.
Yeah.
It was things about the different things that I was thinking about and the things I've seen in my childhood that influenced the book, things like that.
Yeah.
Now as I try to work on getting my memoir wrapped up. When I get ready, I'll be starting my newsletter back up again. and I'm collecting emails still for it. But
Mhm.
once I start it back up again, it'll be more geared towards talking about the different little things inside the memoir, talking
Yeah.
about family and things I've learned, and focus on basically the brand that I want people to see, because I don't want people to think of it as you're ever changing your brand. But I'll be honest with you, in 10, 20 years, you're going to be 100% different than you are today.
Yep, you are.
It's, you could say, I'm never going to change. They're looking back, like my wife and I've been married for 11 years, looking back how we were back then
Mhm.
versus how we are now. It's astonishing the different people we were. And we even
Yeah.
joke about it.
Mhm.
And that's just a short time of a decade. You added over any writer's career of 20 or 30 years, 40 years, you're definitely going to be different than you are.
Yeah.
You you have to brand yourself as close to who you are as you are, but keep in mind you show them what you feel would be the best for your brand, as in what kind of stories you're doing. If I mean, you don't want to be talking about D&D and all this and writing crime fiction.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But writing about D&D and doing fantasy books go hand in hand.
Naturally.
So, but writing, "Hey, I watched this true crime book," and then, or this true crime podcast, and then talking about your cop book, or
Mhm.
your anti-hero thief, say blah, blah, blah,
Mhm.
that makes sense. You have to think about what you're doing and how people see you, because you don't wanna be that goofy guy writing crime fiction, or you don't wanna be that creepy guy writing fantasies, you know?
Mhm. Yeah. So that makes sense. I mean, just being aware of your content plan and everything else is that's a good idea. So what are you working on for you said you remember working on a memoir. Are you working on anything else for yourself? And now is a good time to plug anything you want to plug.
Basically, writing wise, I'm working on my memoir, which is basically a story of over the last 20 or 25 years of things I've done and the lessons I've learned from them, because I've lived a crazy life in the sense of the things I've done. I also have a book that I'm almost finishing of children's stories that once that's done and cleaned up, I'm going to be putting out and get the artwork done for it. But outside of writing, I have my podcast Call with Dads, which is a bunch of dads. We talk about issues that affect fathers, good, bad, whatever they are. And then I also have a website that is focused towards kids learning called Homesor, HOMESSOR, that is focused on building a community of learning for homeschool kids or kids that want to expand their knowledge outside of public school. So Homester's just getting started. We're building up our instructors and things like that. But Call with Dads, we've been going for quite a few years now, or a couple years now. We have good people on that makes wonderful advice so that it helps you become a better dad. And be honest with you, there's great advice on there just to become a better man as well.
Hmm. Always. I think fatherhood kind of changes you a little bit in terms of making you a
Oh
better
yeah.
dad.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
yeah, well, thank you, Eric, for taking time. I know we went, we went a little over, but I mean, I was really engaged and I really enjoyed the conversation with you. But yeah, thank you again for appearing on the show. And once again, you can find where can we find you online.
You can find me at eamaynard.com. You can find me at callwithdads.com. Those are the two best places to look for me. And either location, you're going to be able to reach out to me.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Eric, and have a good day.
Thank you, Paul. You as well.
All right, thank you.